Halapaini tu kapakamatala, Honani keloa matai ngata, Lono atawa ke pai hana, Veka talo moe lotu hei lala, Hewisai, Parapakapo, Amasi mono kuloto, Kaneongo, Eneto, Namau ngaki e kai pono, Nae tuko, e ponua, e tupo o hapai ki alunga, Ke malui, me olunga, Atonga nyo whai o tupua.
Welcome to Voice of South Pacific and Radio Tonga broadcast. This is all the Pacific Islanders broadcast, for all the islanders in the Pacific. So today we're so glad that we have the opportunity to going to work with and do a dialogue, with the experts from the King County Public Health. Ai koe ahoni ma fam te ta ipe koe ngā koe lawa ke tau kawhataha pia mō tau kakai koe ia I he King County. Ka koe kautu ki mo a whokia I he ngai matātao I he ngahi whatotolo ngai mahak pipihi. Pia mō ngai mea te nau lawa wahe mai ke ina sia tau kainga. Mo whamore pe koe me lahi e mau polokalama e ahoni. Te mau ngawe aki a lewa pitania. Koe ngā ke whehu I aka ngai whehu I pia pau o kia I hataha. Anybody that would like to ask a question, that would be welcome at any time. And I would like to ask Ella to please put out the phone number, 206-651-7522. Wana ono ni matafit ni mawawa. Koe ahoni fok today is Wednesday, April 7 of 2021. E ahoni, koe epeleli awhitue ni oi waafi wantaha. Pea o tau whiwhia pe koe lawa ke tau kawhata e whamawhalarea ai Pacific South pea mo e Pacific kota pe. Ai koe ahoni uki a tau kawhawhonga Fisi ko Hamoa, Tonga, pea mo Marshallies. Ai tau kawhata heni with Nori Del Pena and also James Cooper. And we are so delighted, to have the experts from Public Health Seattle King County to talk about mental health and the COVID-19 pandemic. And so we would like to welcome Saini Puloka Tatola from our Tongan community leaders, and also Joseph Seia. He's the executive director from the Pacific Islanders community of Washington. And also Amelia. Is from representing the Fijian community, Amelia Vakalutukali, and also Gigi from the Marshallies. So I don't want to take any too much time because we're starting a little bit late, but before we continue on, I would like to ask Sela, please, can you play the Fijian melody, before we continue on? But at least we have Nori inside and also James. And also Saini. So we're waiting for Joseph and those to join us.
Tausangi mai manue
Tausangi mai manue, tausangi mai manue, le lo faiulu na aue, wailunga umaunga, fai foi le vanue, wailunga o tumu tumue, iwa tafele uto tau faue, e ua sola le fa Samoa, Samoa la unue. Fatima yonga lufao aliau, aliu mafinga ta olea au, pata li te mule nusa vavau, ia manga loa ile salati ngila, la wafio ngai le kaisa ia o la tamana fafola.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. And thank you, Christina and Nori, and also James, for joining us today. We know that your time is very relevant, but sorry for our starting late today. Welcome to our Pacific Islanders broadcast. And we have this, every other week because we do want to provide the information, that is very, very relevant to support our community of all our Pacific Islanders communities. First of all, I would like to welcome Christina. If you guys can just, say hello, Christina. Predict. Christina Predict is a public health information officer with Public Health Seattle and King County. Hello, Christina.
Hi there. How are you doing tonight?
Oh, thank you. Sorry, we're running with coconut time tonight.
No problem.
Okay, and next thing I'd like to say, hello and welcome to Nori de la Pena. She's also working with the public health, especially with the tobacco prevention program. Ko e taha ngai polkalama that I think it's very, very this is one of the best, to provide to our Pacific Islanders community because I've seen, almost like 9 out of 10, they're all smokers, and it's good, to help out with the tobacco prevention because of the health-wise. Nori de la Pena, hello.
Hello. Greetings, everyone. Hope everyone's having a good evening. Thank you for having us back.
Yes, thank you. And the next one is James Cooper. He is also a family and prevention section manager with the King County's behavioral health, and that's what we're going to talk about it today. Ko tahaine ngahi tafaaki O whaikai whenga ke tokoni ko ia ai King County, ko inga ko behavioral health, that's what matters in life, to support us, with a good mental health support program. And I think we're getting close, to get it. It's already approval with a lot of our community leaders. And he was also born and raised in Guam, and he has lived and worked for the past 17 years in Washington State. All right, welcome, James Cooper. You want to say hello to the Pacific Islanders?
Hello, half a day.
All right, thank you. And I think I have Saini. Saini Puloka is currently working with the city of Seattle in a lot of things. She retired, and then also they called her back to come back. And Saini, you want to say hello?
Malay. It's good to see the others on board, and great to have you all. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And also, last but not least, is the executive director of the Pacific Islanders Community Association in Washington State. We're so glad we finally get Joseph. We have to make an order. It's a mandatory. He has to join us today. And Joseph Seia, welcome, Joseph. Talofa lava.
Maloele talofa.
Okay. All right. And I think that the first question that I wanted to give the chance, for you, Joseph, to, I don't know if you see that, that we were giving the opportunity to ask about, the vaccines, and the location, because I know that you guys always do every Monday with their vaccine appointments. Can you ask about, the vaccines availability to the team from the King County? Joseph, go ahead.
Yeah, of course. And then for Auntie Fatima, so we also have Amelia here, who is program director with the Pacific Islander Community Association. You want to just say hi quickly, Amelia?
Bulavinaka, everyone. Amelia Baklotikali from Pacific Islander Community Association.
She's
Nice
from
to be
Fiji.
here.
Bulavinaka, Nisan Bula.
Yeah, thank you, Auntie Fatima, for having us. Joseph here serves as the executive director for the Pacific Islander Community Association of Washington, and we've been we're a statewide serving agency that serves Pacific Islanders in Eastern Washington, Southwest, and here in Western Washington. And vaccine equity is at the top of our priorities since the rollout and prior to the rollout. And so, at least here in King County, there's a partnership that we have with Harborview to vaccinate, to make sure that we have an access point for Pacific Islanders, not just here in King County, but also in Pierce County, out of our offices in Federal Way at 33710 9th Avenue South, Suite 1. You show up, you schedule an appointment, or just show up. We don't turn anybody away. We are not doing any vaccination this Monday, but after this Monday, the following Mondays, we are continuing with that body of work with Harborview. Also, Amelia is in charge of our weekly vaccinations in Snohomish County. And we also have our vaccinations in Spokane County with Kiana there, and also in Vancouver, Washington, and Clark County. So we're doing vaccinations throughout the state to make sure that our community that is extremely under-vaccinated and have tremendous access issues with the current setup of the vaccination, to make sure that we're not erased from this rollout. We know how inequitable this rollout has been, how disastrous this rollout has been. And so it is our commitment to make sure that our people are accessing what they need to be able to walk through our doors and get what they need to save their life. Thank you, Fatima.
Amelia, do you like to ask, the King County staff about any any vaccine availability, that they have from they're sponsored by the King County? Amelia, since you're responsible for the Pacific Islanders, Community Association vaccine schedule. If you want to ask, the King County, that would be great.
Yeah, so I have a question. I know out here in Snohomish, they have these mass pod vaccination setups that happens, and then we do get a link that we can go to. Is that the same setup for King County, or is it a little different?
Yeah, so it's a little different. And there are a couple different ways. First of all, I want to acknowledge what you said, Joseph. And yes, it's vaccine equity has been a huge challenge, and there's a lot of people in the county who are really looking at new ways to evolve how the vaccines are being rolled out and to reach the people most in need. And one of the things is through community vaccination events, a lot like what it sounds like you do. So if anybody knows of a community that's really hard to reach, and maybe they have a connection to a church or a community center, they can email community vaccination events at kingcounty.gov. And what the county will do, it sounds a lot like what you do, is to connect the site with a provider. And then it's only through community referral that people can access that vaccination site. And that gives people, that means people can get appointments when often without having to deal with the internet or having to weed through different appointments. And for finding vaccines in King County, there's kingcounty.gov/COVID/vaccine. And that is a website that has translated language materials as well as where to find a vaccine. But I also want to share that right now there is a lot of availability for the Johnson & Johnson vaccine at the Auburn site. And this is located at the Auburn Outlet Collection Mall. And today, April 7th, through Monday, April 12th, there's high appointment availability. So if anybody's been having trouble getting a vaccine, this is a great place to go. And I'm going to give you a link. I'm going to put it in the chat box that will take people directly to the appointment scheduling. And we hope that will make it easier. And that website is Your COVID Vaccine, YourCovidVaccine, yourcovidvaccine.kingcounty.gov. And that web link will take you directly to the registration for the Auburn site. So people can register for the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. And like I said, there's high appointment availability. So if you know somebody who's been having trouble getting a vaccine appointment, I would really encourage you to go to that link. It's also great for people who may have trouble getting to vaccine sites multiple times because the Johnson & Johnson is just one shot and it is done. And then also in Redmond, there's a site that is now open. One more, sorry. And if somebody doesn't have internet access for any of the vaccine sites, they can call the King County COVID call center at 206-477-3977. Again, that's 206-477-3977. And then every day, people are there to answer questions about COVID from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. And they can also help people schedule appointments over the phone. And then just
Christina.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Quick question. So transportation is a challenge, right? What are the resources to be able to, for folks to get to their vaccine site? The other challenge is the actual like having to make an appointment or to get a referral through somebody that gatekeeps those referrals is still another barrier, right? And so, for a community that is most impacted, like Pacific Islanders, it's actually just having them show up, right? And so as like that is like the make or break it, right? And so if our folks don't really, because oftentimes we have psychology of scarcity, right? There's just too much things to worry about to then have to schedule something to get a ride there. Whereas if there were actual sites where people just showed up, right, and were not turned away, I'm just wondering like what the county is doing around like literally eliminating all those barriers, right? because those are very real barriers for our communities to get vaccinated.
Yeah. So, and I am happy to, and even if we want to have a show around vaccine barriers and vaccine equity specifically, I think that would be a great conversation to have. There are some sites that are where you show up and it's first come, first serve for appointments. So you don't need to make the appointment. And those vary on availability based on the vaccine supply, which is something that's controlled at the state level. But when you look at the vaccine appointment website, or when you call the number, the 206-477-3977, you can ask specifically for a site where you don't need an appointment, where it's a walk-up, first come, first serve. And then about I know for the Redmond site, that's a site they were looking to do through community referrals. And I think reflecting what you were saying, Joseph, how that can be really difficult. As of this week, it's now open to everybody. So it's an additional site in Redmond, and it is, I'm going to put the website in the chat box. It is kcvredmond.com. And I'm putting that in there. And the phone number, if people would like to make an appointment specifically at that site in Redmond, is 425-899-3933. So yeah, I think the community vaccination events are probably the tool that's been most used to help with vaccine equity. And then just setting up sites in different ways and realizing when they don't work that changes need to be made. And that's why there was the change at the Redmond site. But yeah, it's a really difficult problem. And yes, I think in the ideal world, there would have been a lot more time for planning as things rolled out and information sooner. But input is always appreciated as well. I know I read your piece in this in the Seattle Times. You were interviewed, and that was read and shared as well. So we appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks for that, Christina.
Yeah.
Thanks for the response.
So much. We're gonna go to our first question here. And before we continue on, can Christina, can you repeat that the vaccination open outlet starting from April 7, which is today, till when?
Through the 12th.
Through the 12th, eh?
Yes.
So we're talking about like next Monday, yeah?
Yes,
and it's
through
just
next
the
Monday.
open outlet is kind of close to is that like more like the open mall?
Yeah, it's right off of Highway 167 near I-5.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I think I know now. And what is the time again?
It is they have appointments all through the day and into the early evening. But you do need to make an appointment online.
Okay.
And it's for the Johnson & Johnson vaccine through April 12th. There's a lot of appointment availability right now.
Okay. I will ask Vaini to say something in Tonga, and then I'll have Amelia mention something to the Fijian. And because our program will be, you can get it on YouTube and also on Facebook. You can tune in, later on at any time. Vaini, te ke toi whakao ngō mai ai outlet ko ni au kamata he aho ni ke au tahawa.
Ia, aia koe hoko te whakene e polo kalama koe ia o whai atu whakahiri wike pia moe Public Health koe na King County ho tau mahenga koe ni. Aia koe nau talamai e ni o iai ai huhu o whai toa koe ko Johnson & Johnson aia whoke o ku huhu to taha pe ia. Koe ki hange koe o ngō whai toa koe o huhu pe o skapa te ahano huhu hoani. Ka koe huhu koe ni o maurewa whenga maari koe ia me he ahoni. O lere au ki he moni te, ka paupe ke whai appointment ni ke time te pire mai appointment ni online, paupe ke whai he computer. Aia koe whai anga huhu koe ni o whai he open, o wofi au pita pe he highway he taha hono fitu pe mai I-5. Aia o ku lava lere pe o whai he ni ho ai appointment ni koe ia ki ho huhu. Aia koe koe website ko na unau talamai koe yo COVID vaccine .kingcounty.gov koe fitu ia koe lava mau atuai ka paupe ke ai appointment hi kai ke lava peo alu ta iai hao appointment te nau hanga talamai koe fe fo i taimi pau koe atai ke alanga mai fai to ai koe whakatokanga penia pa mo te whalotolahi pe ke nau tolu ko ke mau hanau whenga mari huhu ke nau lava tu mai huhu me apen lahe opite appointment o kuava me taimini o lere wa foki ki he ahata hawa ai pa ahmoni te ia ke tempo ni ku fie fa pe foka malo he ni he proklama Silvia ki e tau fefine tonga ko ni ke sina tu vai pecker ko e foka une hanga o fai time te pire o mau ai ngahi whenga mari ki huhu ai kakai to lahi mau ai whenga mari o family o oku ke mau lava to o lava fai ai huhu ai asina ko nga mahu ingai ni maonga ke fai ke ko uhi abai to lahi mai whenga mari ki huhu malo
thank you. I think we're gonna go into the phase 2 of our dialogue and our conversation today. I would like to leave the first question here for Joseph, to go ahead and ask the first question, to Nori and also James Cooper. Joseph, did you have the questions?
Sure. So we know that this pandemic is hard on people in many different ways. Can you begin tonight by reviewing what is normal when it comes to mental health crisis and stress?
I can start us off. Hi everyone.
Hello, James.
Hello. So I think the first thing that comes to mind when thinking about stress and what's normal is that really stress is normal. I think just simply put, stress is a normal experience for everybody, for every person. In fact, a certain amount of stress can actually be helpful for people. So if you think about, when you're working or if you're playing sports or doing some kind of activity, there's a certain level of stress that allows you to focus and even perform better. What makes stress challenging is when something becomes so stressful or you're affected so much by stress that it's something that starts to impact your daily living. So if something becomes so stressful that you can't sleep, or that you're not eating well, or you're not eating as much as you normally do, that's when stress becomes worrisome, right? Not so much normal, but more worrisome than anything. So those are, I know it's a little bit of a lead into some of the other questions for later, but just wanted to kind of make that distinction about stress, that stress is a normal part of just daily life. And what makes sense about stress is when you start paying attention to what it does to you.
I wanted to also add that conversations and this dialogue that we're having this evening really helps to normalize talking about mental health. I know in communities it's really hard to bring it up. It's hard to talk about it. It's hard to share what's going on in your lives and what you come across. So we're hoping through these conversations we can make it more of a normal conversation, so that the stigma, we can get rid of the stigma, conversation by conversation.
And the next question here, I will let Amelia ask the question. Amelia, go ahead.
Abula, I have a question. Coming from a Pacific Islander family, my question is, I know a lot of the norm out there is focused towards talking about youths that are stressed out, have a little bit of mental issues, especially now in the COVID season, right? I know there's a lot of resources available for the young people, but what kind of resources do you have available for the parents, specifically Pacific Islander parents? And if you do have some, is it working or not? Like, what are your success rate for it?
Those are great questions. I'm not sure what the success rate is per se. I don't know if we have the data on that yet. But there are several resources. Hopefully Christina can plug some of those into the chat. I'll point out the resource that we have been referring folks to is our COVID well-being webpage. That's now in the chat. Thank you. And that lists a bunch of resources, national, local. It lists the crisis connections line is in there, as well as the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. There's resources specific to communities. I know some of these resources that we've pulled together have come from the community, whether it be the Black community, the LGBTQ community, and we've also got some resource guides translated in Somali, Spanish, and Vietnamese. We're hoping to get some more of the Pacific Islander languages available as well. As far as Pacific Islander specific resources, there are some national organizations that look it up and pull it up in the chat, but there are some resources nationally. There's also some of these similar conversations that are happening virtually, like this one, that other Pacific Islander organizations are hosting. And multicultural services or multiculturalcounselors.org is a great resource that's included here in the chat, as well as the National Alliance on Mental Illness. And I know that they're hosting many community-specific type of support groups, and especially for parents or family members living with somebody with mental health illness or condition, they can turn to those resources as well. There are an abundance of resources. I don't want to overwhelm you too much, but they are listed on our website. And James probably has some more to add.
Yeah, thanks, Nori. I was thinking about your question. When it comes to support for parents, a lot of times, whenever we're thinking of like mental health services for youth, for example, right? People often forget that, the families surrounding them are also being impacted, right? And so one of the first places I tell folks about is, go to the same place that your child or your youth or your teenager is going to, if they're receiving some sort of mental health support, go to that same place and ask about, what kind of supports are there for parents. There's a real recognition that, a child or a youth doesn't exist by themselves, right? They live in a household with family members, and it's really important to integrate, those family members and provide them with support as well. The other piece that comes to mind for support for parents is, a lot of times the type of support that parents or families need is just more education about what might be happening for their child. So there might be, for example, community-based trainings, parenting guides, parenting curricula dealing with specific topics that parents can go to. So I can drop a couple of more resources here in the chat, but one that comes to mind in King County and really throughout the state, but in King County we also have community prevention coalitions, and part of the focus of these coalitions is to promote and message around the dangers around substance use, but they also provide community-based parenting curricula that's available in the communities that they're situated in. So I can put that link in the chat so you can see where those 6 coalitions are in King County. And then another organization I'm thinking of, it's called Guiding Good Choices. That's another, Guided Pathways, and that's another organization. Sort of, they're based in the south part of King County, but they do various types of parenting and even youth groups throughout the county. So that's another good place to seek out, like just if someone is interested in just getting more information and educating themselves about what mental health looks like and that sort of thing.
Thank you.
If I may jump in here with this current subject being discussed now, I think I'd also like to point out, I grew up in Tonga. I didn't come to this country until at age 21. And I'm, 64 now. I think it's important, at least speaking for my fellow islanders and from Tonga, we grew up in a very small, very simple society. And then here, years of living here is much more complicated, meaning I may have been okay coming from Tonga and, may not have experienced depression or anxiety. But over the years in a very complicated society here with everything else going on, I could and have developed, issues of anxiety or issues of depression. So I think it's important noting, when the subject of parents and parenting, being brought up, I can see that, not only for myself, but for other relatives and people in the community, that one can develop that, and it's okay. And so it is great to have this discussion, get the resources and the help that's available there, such as, this forum here, this platform, to help us demystify the subject of mental health. So it's great. It's great discussion. Thank you.
And I'll just say too, just to add to what you just shared, I grew up, I was born and raised on Guam, and my experience was similar in that, when I came out to the States, things felt less safe than they did back home, right? And even in that, even in just the sort of relocation, and even in that sense of this doesn't feel like what I grew up with, can really, we were just talking about stress, can really add stress, so much so that it can really make you, and this goes for anyone, no matter what age, can really make you have a level of stress that can lead to things like your mental health being affected. So I think that's a really great point.
I have a question. And hi, I'm sorry I joined in late.
Hi,
Hi. I have a question regarding, after seeing, our, not the younger generation, but, parents, it's very important that there's some programs out there. As I see fathers get into trouble with the law with DUI and stuff like that, they go to these places that they're supposed to go and get some counseling and whatever. I think there was just one place that offered that interpretation. But if they're just going in there to, get it done, it doesn't help them. So how can you, for mental health, help that situation? Because, I feel for the parents trying to adjust with the culture here in the United States, but we, like everybody's saying, we're different in every which way and everything of how we express our mental issue. Parents don't really talk about it, because it's our job to be strong for our kids and just work for the living for our kids. So I find that, with especially fathers that get in trouble with the law, with DUI and stuff like that, I feel like they don't have that help when they're going into all these programs. I think that should be something that is, for a mental health resources and everything, that should be addressed too. Because if you're going in there just to, yes, nod your head, yes, no, maybe, or whatever, you're not getting it. You're not getting how can you really talk about your issues and how you can be safe in talking about your issues of anything that's happening. So I find that, with all this talk about mental health, these are things that we want to have a home that is a happy home, but it's not that way if the two parents are going through all of this. So I believe our younger generation are starting to understand the way everything is in the United States of whatever, but there's our age people or parents that is not something to talk about, that you're having all these issues. But you're having all the issue. Where can you go? Where can you really talk about it? Have those kind of resources. Like I mentioned before that mental health, if I was to say you may have a mental health to our generation or you're a little bit younger, they're going to say, what do you think? I'm crazy? It's different. So those kind of languages should be, if we're really trying to help all of us, different culture and have different for the, whatever your cultural need. I think with public health and all that, that should be some of the stuff that is really talked about and not just push aside because we're different, or anything like that. And if you can't get to that person because they're not going to admit nothing, then we need to figure out how can we help our communities.
I want to let James and Nori speak to the mental health part. But I want to say one of the things that I think COVID has really brought to light is it's given focus and some funding on things that were really needed. And I am part of a group that talks about language access within King County. And just seeing how language access was largely post-COVID, or pre-COVID, while seen as a mandatory service, really wasn't given a lot of funding, and there wasn't a large priority based on language access. And I think when we look at the silver linings of COVID, one of the things will be that we can kind of, there's a focus on where the gaps in the system are in a way that are getting the people who need to pay attention, including with funding. So I wish I could say, yes, go here. And there's therapists who speak Tongan and they can be a resource for you. And there's not, I don't think I can say that right now, but just letting you know that that is something that's being worked on internally. Everything from having translators not just work shifts, but consistently available for things such as our vaccine and our testing sites, and making sure materials in translated languages are out as soon as possible. And I think mental health falls under this as well. So I wish I could tell you something very positive right now, but just know that people are thinking and working on the language piece, because I think it's critical, especially for mental health and when people are having very vulnerable conversations, to have that cultural and language connection.
Yeah, thanks, Christina. I'll build off of what Gigi was sharing. It's one thing to have language access, right? It's also one thing to actually have the Pacific Islander community, whether it's Turquoise, Marshallese, Tongan, Samoan, Fijian, actually steward the mental health for their communities, because just the cultural nuances is actually the bigger barrier. It's not a translation issue. And we've searched far and wide in Washington State, and we literally only found one Pacific Islander psychologist, which is so sad, right? That there isn't the structure and the capacity for our communities to actually steward the mental health body of work for our peoples. And I know Pacific Islanders have a really hard time just because of the white supremacy that shows up in Western therapy and the ways that they look and problematize and our people, right? There's a lot of ways that our people are harmed when they walk into therapy, and so those spaces are often very hostile for our communities, right? Yeah, and so it's hard because it's like, yes, it's a language issue, but it's also like, how do we resource Pacific Islander community organizations and also networks that are not as organized to like be able to hold wellness sessions with their own people, right? To hold space with their own people. And honestly, there hasn't been any funding for organizations of color, especially Pacific Islander organizations, to do that body of work. All the mental health dollars are going directly to white mental health institutions or other main institutions that don't know how to work with our people. Also, like, just because there's Asian counseling, it's a very different culture. Asian Americans are a very different community from Pacific Islander communities. We don't go there for support, and so it's a huge challenge for us that we're tackling, not just at Pika, but throughout, like this country is really thinking about what does mental health wellness look like for Pacific people, and how do Pacific people steward that body of work?
Thank
Joseph,
you
I'm so sorry
for
to taking your time, but if you just have like a 1 minute, okay, I'll let James answer your question, and then Joseph just say like a one sentence, in a Samoan language. Thank you. Go ahead, James. You're gonna learn how to speak all these multi-Pacific Islanders languages, eh?
Sure, and I don't want to. I know Nori was also going to chime in, so I don't want to speak over her. If Nori, did you want to?
Go ahead. I can follow you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, as speaking as a Pacific Islander who had done clinical work, I can't, it was a reciprocal feeling. I can't tell you how shocked and surprised I was when I had a Pacific Islander family come to see me, and how excited I got because this was an opportunity, right? So, Christina earlier was mentioning, COVID is one of the, I guess, highlights of COVID is that it's really placed a spotlight on where the gaps are. And right now, one of the big gaps is this question of, do we have people who are doing the good clinical work that are representative of the communities that they're serving? And the answer is no, right? You mentioned there was one psychologist, who is a Pacific Islander, and that seems to be, unfortunately, the case in a lot of places and in a lot of cases. The one thing I would say too is the Western idea of mental health. People typically think of that one-on-one therapy, like I sit in front of a therapist and they tell me what's wrong with me, that sort of thing. And I'll say that one resource or one aspect that's currently present for a number of behavioral health provider agencies, for example, is that isn't the only thing they'll offer. So there will be certain organizations, for example, that will offer sort of more group experiences or community building experiences, or will be more prone to invite family members as part of that support. And so I think that's starting to get at some of the challenge where it's not that one-on-one, Western sense of what mental health is, but it's a different approach, and that can be available. It depends on what organization you go to, and it's a little bit of advocacy, I think, too, on the part of the people that's seeking that support.
And I wanted to share that from experience, watching my parents go through, the last 25 years of having not one, but two of my siblings with that have bipolar mental illness, and just kind of trying to support them, and they didn't have anywhere to go to. They were trying to find the same thing, like, where's the Filipino doctors, or who do I go see? And it was very frustrating. And even when I was going through it at the very beginning, like trying to help my parents navigate. And it's unfortunate that it's been 25 plus years and it took a pandemic to really be able to highlight what's going on. But what helped me kind of navigate, because I too didn't have peers that were going through what I was going through. It was hard for me to reach out to people. But it was really helpful to learn about it, whether it be depression, anxiety, really delving into what that is and why my siblings were experiencing what they were experiencing, and not putting it off like, oh, they just want attention. There's other things going on, that weren't right. And, and the behavior change that was taking place, it was really, the call for help. And it's not one of those things that we're like, you just sleep it off, pray, start eating right, all of these things. It just wasn't helpful. You really have to delve in and educate yourself and become aware of what the symptoms are, what they look like, how to keep yourself, how to keep them safe. So I just can't stress enough the importance of that. And again, the importance and value of checking in with your kids, checking in with your young people, your family members, even if it's just what's on your mind, what's keeping you up at night, how are you doing? Just those conversation starters. And hopefully that can lead to people really getting help. And if there's something really pressing that is going on, if I would encourage folks to reach out to their provider. Like if you see a doctor, if your young person sees a doctor, reach out to them first, and maybe they have other resources that they can share with you. Obviously you want to reach out to somebody that you trust. So that's all I have to share about that piece. Thank you.
This is one of our community leader for the Tongan. It's Sina Aloy Funa Packer. She's the one arranging all the vaccine drive, vaccination drive through, for the Tongan community. Sina, go ahead and ask your question.
Oh, okay. Hi. I have a quick question to James. Nori? Yeah.
They can hear you. Go ahead, Sina.
Thank you.
Sina?
Hi. I have this question here. Okay, this is a question for James Nori. Yeah. This is in regard to our seniors, underserved senior, Tongan seniors here in Seattle. What is a good way to stay physically and mentally? Yes. Saina, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So.
We can hear you, Auntie Sina.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just there's some scratches happening,
Yeah. Sina, can you go ahead? Yeah. What is the mental support for the senior?
The question is, this is a question from James Nori. It's in regard to our seniors, underserved seniors who here in Seattle. What's the good way to stay physically and good way to stay physically and mentally sharp when they are alone? No. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I think you can hear that, James. She's been cutting off.
Okay.
Yeah. So, what is a good way to mentally?
Sharp when they are alone because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Because of the pandemic.
What do you suggest? To keep those oldies, stay mentally sharp, instead of getting depressed and during this pandemic,
Yes.
I think that's the question. Yeah.
I
Okay,
will
go
have
ahead,
to
James.
share
Yeah.
what I usually tell my parents, I suppose, and that is to have a routine. Try to get exercise, whether it be walking, just around the block, getting some fresh air. I always encourage them to reach out to their friends because those socializations, those activities aren't happening anymore for them right now, and so reaching out, whether that be just FaceTime or calling or texting, and then eating as well as they can, like incorporating the vegetables and the fruits and not going through the drive-throughs just to pick up a quick meal because they don't want to cook, that kind of thing. And I always try to encourage them to, when we talk about substances, to try to keep that in moderation. If they're going to do that, if they're going to drink, do it in moderation, and just have just balance things out. That is, and then there's also, reading and listening to music as far as sharpening the mind. I know there's some folks out there that like to do crossword puzzles and Sudoku and things like those that can keep the mind working. And my dad has been trying to read poetry and memorize poetry, so really working on his memory as well.
So I think I would like to maybe ask each one of you if you could just take 1 minute to say something in your language. Saini, can you go ahead and try to share what they advise, or what they suggest, Saini in Tongan? Ke hame atokon ke ka vai vai he ngai time whangata a koe ni ke nau no fope ke fia mo ke sai ho nau atamai wha mori mori.
Ia, koe potala noa fo koe o ko talanga whai koe he ahoni o whakate whito ia i he hāhangai mea te tau lava whai. Pe koe haha toko ni lava whai mai maa ki tau tolu mei tu a hange kon ko panga mo ui a King County. O whekau aki pia mo ui lerei koe ia aho tau atamai. O ta tau pe ia pe koe whanau, pe koe mātua, pe koe tau kau vai vai. Ko sina tui vai pe ka whoko enu me eke mai whehu koe. O ne pehe koe hāre waha mea te tau whai ke lava o ke hange koe tau kau vai vai, koe tau mātua, pe koe tau kui, o tau nofo moia, pe o nau nofo pea te nau tolu. Ke nau ke mo ui lerei pe. Tau te whito pe whoki he taimi koe ni o plotonga hoko ai koe ni e toa e tō mahaki koe ni. E koe hi whoki o ta ofi, ai o holo. Kai ke nau kei whaalawa, koe ngai siasilahi, koe o kei tapui o ke lotu. O kai ke whaha hata wo ewa holo ke ngai api. Kau hala ngai mea e lava a whai, ke kei mahino pe o ku tau lava toko ni i pe tau lava wharei, hangai whaunga ke kei lerei pe, mo tau lerei, ai mo ui whakai atamai. Pe mahalo koe ayang whakatonga ke, mo ui whakai loto. Aia koe whahino koe ni me he kau wharei koe ni me pure anga e punga mo ui, ke koe sai taha ka pau ai hanau ki polo kalama pau i he aho. Hanau mea whahe hoa pongpongi, hanau mea whahe hoa ta, e whiawhi, pe toki hoko tempo uri. Pe uke hanau whanki polo kalama. Hange pe nau pere, pe nau vei mau, pe nau hawhenga mea pe. Ko whare e whiwhine kona e toki rea, ni tamai ne whare e ne mātua. Ke ai hana ki polo kalamba ko ki taim te pire. Whewhe na awhaiwhai nau pe nau waia o kai pe me he take out pe koe me he ngahi. Me he ngahi whare koe ku te alpe ota mea kai me ai o kai ke na kuki api. Pea ke toka ngā ia nge whoki ka pau o na ke mau pe e mātua e na mau pe mea tokon lerei. Ai o ikai koe fo i na ko fu suka pe na fu ngako ka ai pe ke palanista tau pe ai mea ko na mau i mea tokoni. Ai ko toka ngā whai ke tau lava pe o ke tokoni e tau kau vai vai pe ko tau kau kakai matoto ange ke kei mo ui lerei pe honau atamai he koe konga pe fokia o e tau lerei o sino atamai malau mari. Ai koe fie mau ke tau whaatala noa ke anau tolu Glasgow na lava lere e lau tohi pe ko na faha fanki va inga ke pe fe pe na lava tui pe na lava la lang pa telefoni pe na ta ko na ngai ka nga mea pe ko kai nga he pe lava a hi holo ka fe na lava pe ke na nga ke internet pe ko fe telefoni pe ke fai fe tu taki mo ba kai ki na tol o na lere pe malo.
So thank you, Saini, but I don't want to take much of our time. After this, we'll go to Gigi, and then next to Amelia, the Fijian, and then Amelia left. Okay, we'll go to Gigi, and then to Joseph, and then I'll play the Masley song. We'll just take 1 minute, to bring in our Pacific Islanders melodies to keep us going, so we can stay healthy. Gigi, say something just like maybe 1 minute, in your language, of what's the mental support, to the oldest. That was the question that was asking by Sina. And then what's the suggestion that came from James and Nori.
Okay. Odada yawe ole. Yawe ronga yaga ilo radio, Gigi Charlene. Enot kachita gore kachita kanewonan arper ilo rebai. Dan rejaga reba mental health. Enot kachum tuot malalana me emaralangan kach kachita go karainar pa kachita kanewonar kajbara urutorinar peranchap dalam dukun ini ba dalam nakainar enodar ki yung paga elun utak manit kainar yen iroi aji kachung pugut tayaman an rutorinar irair kainu manair kalnalajan evergin public health jadar mi rome cibe jala jikan charbal kainair di kamolo lebe menge repinangan kecilo teregain cetagain program reka ciongan kamanim jika ciongan lalir program anangan kejuit remaja enoda apa ke menge bayan pin teregain tayo marong kaman manlap ar ainang manlo kalamalang perpautage jeni kaciungan palle to kain malalai pen reservoir and public health kilo kamalalagan air kumemol ya kumayro jage wa caraman. Okay.
Fatima, you're muted.
Talofa.
Talofa, Fatima. My Samoan is not as strong. But I'll say something in Samoan. Yeah, tanga Samoa manatua pea a fai mana miele tui pui. A fio mai le ofisa ole socio tangata Pasifika I Federal Way yasunga fua a mata I apelidas fuluiva masunga fua mulmuliane. Manatua pea tausira soifua malolo ino tato mafafau fa atasi ma soifua malolo ino tato tino toanga faile fa malo sitino na miele sosoani faso tai mai le matou ofisa vala au mai le numera lea o le lua o ongo ono valu ono a lima lua tasi a fafatai te le lava I le mai mua mai. Po manuia.
Oh, thank you, Joseph. Short and sweet, eh? Okay, right now we're gonna go and play that's the one from Marshallese, right now, or the Toso from Fiji. Just to give us a little break here, and then we'll continue on in about 30 seconds. It's kind of mental health support, yeah. Okay, I would like, before we continue on, I'd just like to take this opportunity. This person here coming all the way from overseas, she said, I am so glad because this is like a global topic, and we're listening from overseas, and we're so glad, that you guys take the time to discuss. So we didn't even know how many lives that we touched. And she said, Elisa Taloa, Malolele, also spend time outside your house instead of staying inside all day. Set up a routine, take a break from TV and media, and some of the things we can do to help our elderly. Thank you so much for joining in. And Latu Huakau, that's our director for our radio. Thank you. Loisi Tupotahafe, all the way to Tonga Islands. And one of the oldest, he's a retired reverend from United Methodist. Kotui Tupokaya, thank you for joining us. Hello, Anastol. And also Sina Aloita Funapeka, she's our community leader for the Tongan community. Thank you all. I didn't get a chance to say hello to everybody, but thank you for joining us. We'll continue on with the second phase of our conversation. So
Thank you.
So these people wanted to leave. Okay.
Bye, y'all. Have a good night.
Good night. Oh, you're gonna run away, eh?
Thank you. Bye bye.
Okay, do you have any more question? Gigi, I know you came in late. Gigi?
No, I don't. I have to jump to another call, but
Okay.
I appreciate the space and thank you for coming, public health officials. Thank you.
Okay. One last
Thank
thing
you, Sylvia,
before.
for having us.
Yeah, before
Thank
we're
you.
closing up, I would like to ask Christina. Christina, could you announce the one in Auburn again one more time?
Yes, that's no problem. The Auburn King County vaccine site, which is located at the Outlet Collection Mall in Auburn, there is vaccine availability for Johnson & Johnson. There are many appointments open between through April 12th. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, I'll have high appointment availability. So if you'd like to make an appointment, you can call 206-477-3977 and say that you would like to make an appointment at the Auburn site. And you can also ask for translation when the person answers. Or you can go to Your COVID Vaccine, YOURCOVID VACCINE, yourcovidvaccine.kingcounty.gov.
I just
And
want to
that's the
repeat
link
the
that
phone
will
number,
let you make an
Christina.
appointment.
The phone number is 206-477-3977.
Correct.
Yeah, so they can call in to make an appointment. Aya ka tai mini o open may he aho fitu ko ni o epeleli to the 12th. So it's open starting today, April 7th, all the way till the 12th, which is next Monday, yeah?
Yes.
And they need to call in if they wanted to set up an appointment. And it's on the Auburn Outlet Collection. Hange ko fitu ko na fire ko ay open mall. Auburn Outlet Collection, 206-477-3977. Thank you so much, Christina, and thank you for the information. So, sina teya hao fehui?
Can you hear me, Fatima?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Don't expect Hufangalupe is gonna vaccine first and second. Okay, I can monitor pika ya. All other days, o go to schedule pero lesisita tau kainga tonga mo hafanga kainga pehe ailani ihe o kunau o kuya ai monu o go mai ke u hanga lesisita tau kainga mo community o bave angeia aia ko me kapa ko ho chance o ma appointment ko na maybe 10%. ka koe hao kono fo mai kono ke he community o koe te window ia o te bawe ange pe a ofi ange koe fo I wa ai tolu o maule sisita e ma tolu koe fo ngai ne mai city o Seattle
Tuku maho telefonisi na.
ke hu atu ai
Ia.
ai o
Huhu, eh?
ke I o ai hu pe bawe ange ke tau kai nga ke koe ke o te nau fai I he peitu pe tahange koe supermall area ka koe nia koe o tolu e site koe safeco mo wesiato mo reinia
ka taka tuku maho telefonisi na.
area code 253
Ua ni matolu.
258
Ua ni mavalu.
8488
Koe ki motolu ko fe mau ke mohu ange koe ka inga tonga or anybody 253-258-8488. Aya koe that's for the Tongan community contact Sina directly, yeah?
Yeah. Koe moni te koe koe pokalama ia koe pika aya toka mo Joseph pe koe utoi ngai aho te lava le bahu ato o kawe utoi ngai koe choice pe wat ke tau kainga
malo
kai fai te ria pe nau tolu ka kusai uai tau toko tahat makalasi pe o ngau he fitu ko ya ke tokon ke mami
Malo, thank you so much, Sina.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, thank you all, and we're so deeply grateful, for all the great information. And I think everyone is so excited, about getting back to normal, returning to everyday pre-pandemic routines may also cause an anxiety. And before we closed up, I know we're running up our time here. What tips can you give to the people? Just any little tip or whatever before we close down?
Be stress-free.
Since everyone is very excited about getting back to the normal routine, and then they're getting anxiety, do you have any tips to give to the people?
Yeah, I could say a few things. I would say, one is, just recognize that normal after COVID may look different than normal before COVID.
Yes.
Really take it slow.
Yes.
Establish your routines. And if you feel your stress and those things are starting to increase, pay attention to yourself, take care of yourself, continue to eat well, sleep well, keep yourself.
Okay, thank you so much. And I really appreciate your time being with us today. And we're looking for the second. Sela, do you have a question?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay. Well, see, you ran out of a question. Yeah. And this is our young people too, but we're deeply grateful for all this relevant information. Oh, I'm sorry. I just saw this little text that coming into my phone. It just said, I'm so sorry. This one here, it doesn't have to do like the first dose and the second dose. What is the difference between this one here and the one that you have to take two vaccination?
Yeah, I can answer that. And James and Nori, I know you need to get going, so sign off anytime. The difference between Johnson & Johnson and the Moderna and Pfizer is it's one shot versus two shots is the main difference. All of the shots have been proven safe and effective. The technology is a little bit different. So Pfizer and Moderna are what are called an mRNA shot. And that uses messenger RNA to send a message to the body what COVID looks like. So it's ready when COVID comes, and think of it as like an email, just sending the little message in. And what Johnson & Johnson is it's a technology called adenovirus. And they send that same message, but via a weakened cold virus. And the virus is weakened to a point where you cannot get sick from it and you cannot catch a cold. It's just the carrier, what they use to get it inside the body. And it does not contain, neither of the shots contain COVID-19 yeah, and I think that's the extent of how they're different. And then Johnson and Johnson, you just have one dose, and 14 days after you are considered fully vaccinated.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. We have a lot of people that were coming in, and also Loisi Tupotahafe and also Anastol, and also Funga Vailahi and Taaki Moyaka, all the way to Oregon. And she's one of the community leader, and they have a broadcast over there, and they're working with their county and their local state government. And we're so glad that she's right in here with us. They said, thank you so much. That was a great program. Thank you. Well, we're going to play the final song, and if you have anything before we finish up, to share with our community, we're going to go to the Samoan and play the melody song from the Samoan Islands, and before we finish up the program, do you have anything to add on to our program today?
We just want to say thank you to everybody who took the time and to come on and to ask questions. And I don't think King County can do any of its work without the partnership of people like you in the community. So we're very grateful.
Thank you. Yes, we're so grateful because you guys are sharing great, relevant information that is very essential to our community. And also, I'm so glad to see our community leader, in our Tongan community. She's here, and Joseph is a community leader for the Samoan, and also the Marshallese, Gigi, and also Amelia, for the Fijian community. We're so glad they were all here today, and all the information today, they will be shared in their own language, to reach out to their communities of the Pacific Islanders. Thank you again, and we look forward, to seeing you on the. So today is the 7th, the 16th. That would be the 16th. Okay, yeah, thank you so much. And here is the Samoan dance song, Thank you, James. Thank you all. Thank you. Now we just finished having our King County expert to share all this great information with our Pacific Islanders broadcast communities. So we're gonna play this song here, and then we're gonna go on with the Danny Katoa from the Legal Shield. Just any song on our tongue.
Angi angi mai, aku nasiu malai.
katoa. So glad to know that you joined us, and sorry to know that we're running with the coconut time today. Yeah. Ko fia be ba mai o sange ko ki tau ila pe te tau le whakatonga pe ko tau o le Samoa pe tau lele pula vinaka e ahon. He po fele ulea ko kai ki tau ila pe ko fele te tau ngau e aki e. So we're going to continue on with, with English and Tongan. Tēnei katoa, ko whamalo atu ho kau mai ki ho mo tuku ho taimi, ne ongo peu tau lele tō mui he ahoni. Ke tau kau whataha, ko i ngā ko e ka taki mo e tēnei ko ilo pe ko taha ko i kau whafofonga ko ia i he kau taha ko i loa ko Legal Shield. Pea ke haka mo o ka taki o tuku mai pe ko i haho o tuunga o ko ke iai i he kau taha ko ni, ai Legal Shield.
Io go malo o pito e whenga maari e Sylvia ke shea mo kakai e tau ngā o whai i e Legal Shield ko e te whako ko iai ko o ko ngā o e mai company e whakalere as a network vice president ki state ko ni Hawaii pau to e whakalere pe ko all business within Legal Shield as a associated rep. I think you're muted.
Oh, na e whakataimi nā ta i ngahi, I think that was last month, nā ta polokala mai. Ko tui koe meme koe fo I polokala mai koe ni, me tamu atu pe ki ho tau kainga tonga, ka e lava pe o to share atu pe ki he ka Pacific Islanders, because they're going to listen in, and for those of you that wanted to tune in, you can listen in, on the YouTube. Voice of South Pacific. Ta tau pim ho ma o ko ia I Facebook ka. He gulahi au pito ai ngahi information lele ko ni kia te koe. Pea ko ia I te ukoleng mo a ke teni. Teni katoa. Koe hana e foloa how many years have you worked with the Legal Shield? Pea koe hana e mea e pehe that will benefit our communities. Not just the Tongan, but everyone else.
Io, malo pito. Koe tau ne tahavalu. This is 18 years of being with the company. And one of the things that attract me to it is the service that we provide. Ogunde hange ave ngai whenga maari ki the working class of America, right? So if you are in the top 10%, o te lava bekitai to tongi te loea. Ka koe, about 80% of Americans are priced out of the legal system. And so, kai taimi ko tau whia maua ko haloea ke review ha contract pe ko sio ke pepa ko tau whakatau ka, whakatau api, pe ko tau reni ha whare. Whainga whangi mea iki pehe o kai te o hoko mau pehe aho ke aho te e anga koe tau nofo whaka Amerika. O kai ke lava, o kai ke ha tau sirini pe ka tau budget ka ta tol o ai ke ta whaki ke to tongi ake loea. And so Legal Shield really gives us a access. Ai ko whairea, I think that's the powerful word. Koe access. Koe anga koe lao koe whaka Amerika. Everyone have the right to remain silent, a right to an attorney. Before you question that we have to access, how many people can actually, we all have the right, how many people have access to an attorney, right? So that's the true question is, yeah, you have the right, but do you have access to your right, right? And so, insure medical, hey? We all have the right to go to the hospital, but you can't go to the hospital because you don't have medical insurance, So it's kind of that concept, Same thing here with the legal. And I think it's more relevant today. People, I think with this pandemic in the last year and a half, we have encountered. Especially people that worked a job and was demoted or laid off or downsized, and they can no longer pay their car note. They can no longer pay their rent or mortgage or things of that nature. O wai before get to tonu in for what COVID-19 has cost people still have rights to be able to live in the home, to still be able to drive the car. But if you don't have access, kapag que te lava kitaya, que te mau ngai whanga maari go ia que te talanoa ke hataha ne ilo ai lao, you were pretty much handicapped. We're pretty much priced, we're out of the system. And so we're always on a reactive mode versus being proactive and moving forward. So I think that's the thing that we try to educate most people. Like if you think about your car insurance, we prepay for it just in case, right? We get in a car accident or somebody hit us or anything wrong with our car, we can always call the insurance department to take care of it. We prepay for medical insurance, the same concept, right? And so we're not looking to go to the hospital every day, but just in case something were to happen to ourselves or our loved ones, we can pick up our children and run to the hospital and not have to worry about paying an arm and a leg. Life insurance, same concept. Go get different at Legal Shield because it's not an insurance product, it's a now product. So you don't have to wait till something bad happens to you to call Legal Shield. You can actually be proactive. You can, if you're purchasing a car, that doesn't make you a bad person, but that contract that you sign may bind you into something that will come back and haunt you financially, and the same with mortgage and things of that nature. Just understanding the law, I think, is a pivotal access in our society today. And I think Legal Shield gives us the platform as Polynesians to be able to have the same access as most American who are well established, to be able to have the same ability to navigate through life without having to pay an arm and a leg for certain things, if that makes sense.
I think my next question, before I ask my next question, I have someone, that I help out with their, with their driver's license and find out they have a lot of traffic ticket. So I did suggest, to join with the Legal Shield. I was so glad, that the person, who had all this traffic problem, lahi ngai tiki te pe lahi whau mo ngai palpare mageke. Pe ta e tu pa koin ko lava solo pa koin ko osi. Whetu taki mai he 2 weeks ago, koin ko lava ma ni laiseni. Pe aku e kai ko me anu wha pole ai. Ka koe uhi ngā pe ia. Aia ko ku ilo iki ai, tola pe wa wha se ni te. Vei, ai ta pe pera tola wani mai mahina. Ka ke lue takai hola mo ke whi mali. So ki mo a ke uhoka ke whehu I hoko. O ko wha malo a tēni ko ngā ko whutau ene taha walu e ngā ue a tēni katoa. Ko tui tēni ka pana e kai ke sa ia. I he me a koe o whai he kautaha mo ngai tokoni. Ko tau kakai. He kai te ke spend time, invest your time with this company, Ka koe me a ko ku kole atu. Kui ai naha ngahi tala noa ko hangeha ngahi testimonial ke e tau kene ngofulu maa walu. Ko haha mea na e hoko ki mua o ke sio ka taha o kau client o kau customers na make a difference, e he Legal Shield kia ki nau tō. Malo.
Io, malo abito, Sylvia. Toko lahi abito. We won't have enough time to go over the testimonies of the last 18 years. Because as a Tongan American, right? Evolve in America. There's a thing called life. Life happens whether we like it or not, right? It just happens. And so most times, I'll just use my family as an example. I won't try to fit all of us as Tongans into one example, but I'll just use my family. So So for my family, we had no clue there's such service like Legal Shield, even though it existed in 1972, right?
Wow.
So it was birthed in 1972. So we moved here in 1983, and we kind of moved to Inglewood, California. My family, my siblings, we grew up there. I came to University of Hawaii in '93. I didn't know Legal Shield until 2003, right? So, because the only reason why I knew about it is somebody educated me that there was such service like this. And so in my 18 years of being here, Sylvia, I ask people as I travel, teach, train, share, when did you get Legal Shield? And people would say stuff like, oh, I got it in 2001. So my question to them is, how come you didn't get it in 2000 or 1999? And the only answer they have is, I didn't know about it. Right? I didn't know about it. So the service exists, right? And so as I grew in the last 18 years, what I heard from our Tongan community is a lot of people who represented the service maybe have represented the wrong way. They just say stuff like, hey, everything is covered, get it for $24.95, if whatever it is. And we don't cover everything.
Exactly.
But most of your basic needs are covered. How about your medical field, right? When you go into the hospital, you pay your $20 copay. You see the doctor. Most of your basic needs are covered at 100%. Anything that is not covered at 100%, you get an 80% discount or 85%, depending on the type of insurance you have. So there's the same concept here. From testimony of utilizing this service, man, I can't start. So here's a pretty simple one: is I got overcharged for a cell phone bill. My cell phone was $99 between my wife and I. Unlimited text message, unlimited minutes, right?
Thanks for sharing that. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I was having problem, and I think I'm gonna do that tomorrow. I'm gonna call the Legal Shield, because all of a sudden, it goes from $150 to $200. Now it's going to $300 a month.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
And so that's what happens with my bill. And then all of a sudden, for the $99, it ballooned to $700. And I called the customer service and I say, hey, what's going on? And they told me that I went over my text message. And so my question to customer service, right, was, how do you go over unlimited text message? But because of the way they are set up, they passed me from one person to the next person to the next person. And I went through this roller coaster of frustration. Now my $700, mind you, a week later, my $700 bill ballooned to $1,200 now. And they threatened to turn my phone off. So I picked up the phone. I called Brevard & Jones, my law firm here in Honolulu, Hawaii. They wrote a letter on my behalf. But here's what's the most powerful thing, Sylvia. Before he sends the letter out, he wanted me to take a look at it. And so as I was looking at the letter and reading the letter out loud, he said, Danny, do you want me to make a phone call? I think the letter, if we send it out, it'd take about 3 or 4 days to get there. Let me make a phone call. And I was so, I think what's the right word? Of saying yes. But I wanted to keep my phone and I didn't want it to turn off. So I said, yes, go ahead and call. And he called right on the dot and shared what he had shared on the letter with the customer service. And it was so profound because 5 days later, 3 days later, I get a call from the customer service, the supervisor of customer service of this particular company. I'm not going to say their name, but apologizing to me for the misunderstanding of the situation. They have waived the $1,200. They have given me a $200 credit that I can use towards my billing or any accessories that I desire to have, and apologize for the situation. But here's the most profound thing, Sylvia. At the end, the lady said, Mr. Couture, could you please let your attorney know that you are satisfied with the service you've been rendered?
Oh,
And I just thought, when I hung up the phone, I just thought it was like, man, here I am, just a customer going back and forward, getting nowhere. But one phone call from a law firm, not an attorney, from a law firm, right? A representation of a law firm carry more weight and carry more clout in the process. And so that's what Legal Shield does. It's the little things that may happen every day. You know, you don't have to be a criminal to utilize an attorney. It's just life. Life happens every day, and how do we respond to it really makes the difference for us as Polynesians or any human being.
Right. Ko ia teni ko hana hau ki foi le whakatonga ka pau te ke teu talangi ki hatonga. Ko ha pe hau ki foi le whakatonga. Ha o kau I he liko sio. Hana hau ki mea te ke vahe vahe. Ko I ngā ko tau lahi o ngā we au ka nau tolu ka ko ai ange ke u. Kau mau he toko ni I ke talangi ko ngā ko wa neuhu. Ko whakawhai e ko whakatono rea ko whare hopo e taha. O mau ke sume o kai ke ila whare hopo taha ko manga ki he o hu ke whai koe. Rea ko pe. Ai nai toton ke tangi o ngomea ko ni ke na ngawe a ke lewa liko sio ke toko ni ka naua. E ko inga fulahi ta koe ko ma o fini motu ai taha mane ne ngawe ke telefoni. Lo tonga ni whakaure hala. Na na tau tuku aki pe he ko jane insiwa. Ta ko asa ke o pai ne proof na iai pene insiwa nana ka mate sanuari ka na hanga na to ai pene ka kiane insiwa. Pea koe toko taha ia koe me ta tau ai pe ko lere ko na ai pe pa moe ha fua ngai traffic ticket. Ka koe nai hau ki foi whakarea whakatonga.
Iyo, ko malo au pito bigi fe whakatapo mega kai tonga na whahala pa vale heni. Ko mea peo ko mea peo ilohi he ka whāgo koe whakapalangi o o hinga pe hanga ko lau ko ne nai o hinga pe kai ke ilo ai he toko taha mahuinga service ko kai ke nau mahinoi ai service he
Pe na ko te tok mau lao pe pa te tok ngawe aki
koia
na ko lava ko malu I kita time ko to he
o foi me aia ko le pe ka hanga ka pe ka pate olat ka ko he Sylvia ko ki me ai ni ko tui pe lava to konia ka ko ka pa ya ki mi te nima ke tu atu mo a pio fa matalat kai ka hanga senia ke ki foi video ko ke COI ke mahuinga ke family mo businessi ke ka pa ke ya ka pa ka ke te mahino mahalo pe ku ke iloi hata te lava to koni ki ai something like that, you know. That's what I do and we ka kai tonga hi heni Hawaii mo I feitu ko to pe ko feinga ke whakamatala ke mahino ka na tolu ai mahuinga ai service ko ai mahuinga service o ko tau whakamatala ke whakatau ai service ko ne mahuinga ia pe to taha I service tele whakatau ia he ka koe me alahi mahalo ko fiu pe tau kakai he whanga ki opportunity o ku kakai o convince e sale more things of that nature and ka koe I think koe mea ke ai product ia koe a tau tolu koe service ia he it's not a physical product where you have to carry around or you have to go try it on someone. And I'm not knocking on those. I'm saying it's from education. I te hanga o whakamatala ke mahino lelei ke toko taha. Ko te mahino lelei pe ka toko taha tonga. Tau mahuinga ia tau tolai te tau whakatau e tau tolu he ku tau sio ke he mahuinga. Ka pai ke mahuinga e ka hataha ke ne lawa ia whakatau he ku they don't see any interest in, you know.
I think those are very great information. The one thing that I wanted to see if Sela, if you could put up the little things for the legal shield, it said right there, worry less, worry less and stress free,
worry less, live more.
And live more,
Yep.
And so it's just like having an insurance, a life insurance. When something happened, you don't leave, all the suffering and all the difficulties, for the family.
Yeah.
O gai pe te malu I ke hoko mai taimi ku ki tau ilo hanga whanonga. Pea ko ai o ku hange pe koe ku ia te medical insurance. O le pe te poke whawhawha po ka mea o kai pe te ki insua kita ke te alfe mari koe te toi wari ke pila.
Monila.
Aia o tatau tof pe eni pea moe likosio. Taimi lahi ia o ku hange pe koe whakatau api, whakatau e mea lere, pa kumoto ai me koe whakau ak ma whakatau e mea lere. Nā whengawe a ki lewa I he mahina e ua koe ni kohiri. Hono I kai ke sai e nau toki tā mai koe e toi holoki ki pe meni. Ko pe, aia ka pauna e tā unga liko seo, man tui whaka e te mtaha ia koe, koe kai koe ke te hanga ilo. You don't know your right. He? Pea koe liko seo, ia te ai koe worry less. Te tuko te kita te whaingata a mo e mea koe ki te ilo I o Afrika ki nau tau. Ka pau ai ki te whakatawa tau api. Afrika nau tau. Ka koe lotonga reni I hawhare. Pea ku hao e len lo teo ta mai ke hiki mo mea. Tuku kātoa hao mai whasia mo mea kātoa ko awe kia ki nau tolu. Ke kau taha, ke to tong talai wanima. I he mahina. Ka nau whai ho ngā we. He kui kai ko nau tolu nei. Na nau koe kau tau kei na nau wako nau tolu ki he mea koe ni. Ko ki taia ko uhinga e te ki to toke ki talai wanima. Ke hoko mai ngai mea pe na uhanga e nau tolu whafofonga I koe pea ke fie maari e pe. O kai whake waa unau wha eke mai he nau tolu o hange koe waa koe ke immigration. O ko ilo pe koe hānai ha mo whengawe ake ta wha ake immigration ni katak.
Ia o ku nau toki ai e ku pepa.
Ko ia.
Pea koe whaitiki te lele wawe ia a koe hala. Na e description si ia he ku mea, he?
Ko ia.
Pea koe mea whakoi le COVID-i, kau tautou tolo I ai taimi hopo ia. Pa osi ko interview ko citizenship, os pasi katoa o mea. Tala mai whina motoa ke lava o take the oath, kai toki clear ai tikite, he? Pa hao lewa o talanoa pa mo attorney, tamai lewa o attorney, ke tuku ke nau hanga ai hatohi, ke send ke immigration. And so, o ku kawa, nai kawa katoa foi tohi koe ni, tai to tongi, ai send koe ke immigration. Koe foi, aho ni ma koe na send ai tohi. I have to go and get the abstract from the court and pass it to my attorney. They put the abstracts in the envelope, send it in, and I was awarded, just like that, to take oath in the situation. But that's just little small stuff, right? Ko ku friend ko fetahine ka nata ia na hiki mai ki American. Ya me osi ko le visa, ya whainga lewa ke to extend ene visa. Hanga lewa alu lewa ki he law firm I San Diego o Totongi. Hanga lewa he law firm I whaide ne pepa. Ko ne Totongi ko ke whaide ko ne pepa I taimi ko ia, he? Na tola pe wafe ni mangeao to do everything. So they do help with the immigration, but it falls in our where you get a preferred member discount, right? And usually is anywhere from 25% to, depending on the type of matters, and then also depending on the state that you live in. It varies in many cases.
Right.
We do help with immigration. If you want to file for your paperwork, if we don't have a law firm, a lawyer within the firm who specializes in that particular area, the hangaleva he law firm o kumi atokotaha what we call a referral attorney, but specialized if in area goya, then you would be able to have the same access of the service towards that referral attorney, and that referral attorney will give you the discount rate that you desire. So, but all the questioning, any questions you may ask, any contracts that needs to be reviewed towards the immigration, they will tell you all the paperwork that you got to fill out. Now, if you want them to fill out the paperwork, that's where you pay, but you pay at a discount, right? So if you think about it, if you do it outside, you're gonna pay anyway. So why not find someone that does it at a discount rate, and you be able to ask question at any time without having to cough up money for every questions that you have to ask. Right? I think that's one of the advantages of being a member at $25 a month. O te lava peo to hake telefonio fehui a foi fehui. That process go because we know it's a process and the fight go at the pepa, life happens. You can get a traffic ticket, whatever it may be, and you have access and coverage towards that. Hope that makes sense, Sylvia.
Yes. Aupito, oku very loud and clear. Koe uhinga koe ki whamatala ki paanga pe wanima. Kai iai e te kautaha loia a ki taia o te osime. Ha te toki hoko ha palo parema. Pa te alo ko mi maa loia pa ne toki charge e iai a kita o aloha o ke lau mano. Ka koe ni o te totong pete ki tola wanima ka nau whai. Kai mo ume ai o koe ke fuwhe maa uia ke whai ha unga whalau ki ai ka te nauhanga pe o whawhe ki ke nau ilo ho totonu ke ua te ke ewhihia he ngai mea ko ia o kulotonga ho o to whanga ai he ngai whaingata a ko ia. Pea kai whahinga ko hange pe ko ki tōtah ko ni. Folo e mau e ne mea e ne CV ki alo mau e ne laiseni. Kana e kai ke mau. Ko ingai nei lahi ne ngai tikite ia anai nei asia no ingoa. Pea fulahi o pito no charge o nei. Taim pe koe na ma petutaki ai ko au pena e tokoni ki ai. Pea koe ni ko lava lewa ko ne fitutaki mai whamalo i maina ko si. Koe ni ko lava lele whai pe e he kautaha koe ni liko sio. O nau talangi lewa he e tokotaha koe ni. Kai ko tikite koe ni ko tokotaha na nau ngau e na toi mea lele koe kini hanga ilo pe ko hai. Hange koe lere kulukula he hala. Hange koe mana e tau he ki tokotaha kai ki aha ne ilo taki ai. Pea koe mea koe nei fia lahi ai tokotaha koe ni. Koe lava ke to o kotoa pea osko ia. Pea alu lewa tokotaha koe ni pea moe mea koe nei release mai pea me he whamau anga. O alu lewa o mau a kene laiseni pea o matu ak fia. Pea koe ni lewa koe ne hu lewa o hoko koe me mipa. He kune ilo ai lelei koe na ne mau me ai. Pea loto ia ke vahe atu ki he kakai. He koe taim lahi o tam nofo i ha ngahi. Hange pe ko pau ka mea ka whare lotu pe ko ha mea kia ngahi api nofo anga. Koe ngahi mea lele. Ha pea ngahi mea ko tau whengawe aki ai. Kakapai ke ki tau ilo ki ai. Koe hangoe lau e koe sisi anga e te ilo. Koe lahi ai pe ia se ono. Hange koe lau hono tā malaki kita. Pea mihi e to tonu ko to tonu ke te mau. Koe ia maha ko whehu i wha o sieni te o e ka lewa. Koe hanai. Ai whonga ko ia ka pau ka taha o loto ke fie kau mai ki he kau taha ke ne ke ngawe akpa ko ha lewa ka pau e hu ha taha ia pongpongi pe ko ha hono follow up e active lewa ene mea pe ka pau ka foi family o fe ma o ke na to tong ka to pe ku lava pe o kava he tola wani mai family ke to hanga mo aki fra mala ala mai malo
malo bito Sylvia koe foi price pe ta kava ga to ai family e ai koe o matua mo whanau ki he tau e uaono koe tau uaono tai mari pe nofo i api koe ku alo ako university away and koe foi mahuinga e service o ku te totola koe uanima ai ko Sylvia o ku i Seattle ia ko Vaini Hawaii ka koe kawa ka to koe i Amerika lahi o a o ki Kanata i he foi uanima koe ai ko te sio koe ai to taka pau ko tonga koe ke whanongo mai o kui kai ko tola uanima pe koe 4.8 million people o kunau totonga tola uanima o kutau lava ai o have access ke whainga service koe ni ai o kuhange ko traditional way go ai totongi go aloia i traditional o ku pau ke te totonga ki te sirimi kana toki hanga provide mai a service. Ko ia go e mahanga disrupt go a service o mahanga matolo totonga loya I he foi kulupu, eh? We there's law firm. I know the law firm in California and Texas and Florida, they get $1 million, I think very close to 2 million in California a month. So I go go e California go ke law firm. O ke na sio na tol go tola wanima o taange. Na sio na tol ke foi kulupu fa ga to men go 2 million in ia I he mahina o tamai. Ai o gu na hanga leva se vesi go e hange pe hata ai ona ai kripa bo ona ai leika ka tamatu mali, right? So that's the ability for us to have that access in the 24.95. But your whole family's covered. And the one thing I love about the service too is, well, there's a lot of things I love about the service, but it's month to month. There's no contract. But I'm telling you, the guy who signed me up, he only signed me up one time, right? And so I've been with the service for the last 17 years. You don't need to tell me, hey, Danny, you got to pay your bill this month. You got to pay your membership this month. No, my family go foha gu tau taha fitu mo tau taha ono. When alubek foha o university he tau kahau ka bai pehe ko ni alu ki mainland teu fia pe mo mau ai lau maari mo loto lele he gu o ko service o tu pe ne telefoni when for push back app then they have the same access just as if my wife and I were next to him to be able to have access to an attorney. So, it's that kind of peace of mind is priceless to have access to. I know your background is in the courts as well. You help so many people, Sylvia, and you obviously have a different awareness about how the law works. And I think as we continue to keep having this dialogue, more and more people will come to see the value ai mahu inga ia he service hange bego tau sioga tau tolu e tau mahu inga ia. Like I alluded to before, the only reason why people didn't get it last year is because they just found out about it this year, about the service. So malo bito give my fanga mali get share with our Tongan community and Polynesian community.
Koia. Whamalo atu tēni katoa, pia koe tawhene kautare ki talahi koia me tawhene hongo mawalu, ene ngāwe koia I he Legal Shield, pia koia kohange koe lau, o koe kau milionea pe o koe nau kau loya. Koe nia ko ki totongi pe ho tolai wanima, ka iai pe ho kau taha loya au ia. Ha pe ha taimi te ke whepake ma whaingataa. Pia koe ki ngā loya iau ai talanoa ne ulaki wahe mai Emeline pia me Los Angeles. Koe wheu ia ko ia o me apply ia ke tonga kotoa. Koe motu a tonga na e si aluia o whakahoko ene ki ngā aue. Koe kau ia te pe. I time pe koe na e find out he kau me a ia o ki kai ke aha ne laiseni ngā aue. Hange koe ni utau o peo ai tau ki ngoe kosi mo e hāfua, landscaping mo. Time koe na e find out he kau me a ia o ki kai ke aha ne laiseni ngā aue. Nei kai rewa ke nau hanga na tō tārangi e kai ke totongia. Pea nau toi find out e nau tōluia, o kui kai ke hane pepa ana ke no whanua e whanuan. Koi whama mai anga, na e kai ke nau hanga o ai ke totongi. Na e lava rewa o mau ai mono ia ai tangata e ki koe ni, o hangi e kau mea o whakahu ke Legal Shield. Totongi lewa ne ki wanima, a pe ke wike taha. Iyo, na iai pe e ne totongi, na ne ki totongi si pe mahalo na e tola ki he waafe nai pe ana ne totongi ko ia na hanga leva e kau taha loia ko ni Legal Shield o na hanga o reimburse silini me ho matu ako na fai ke ngawe me api ko ia pe ana to e frafoki ka to mai mo back pe ka to mo ngawe ko ni ko totongi ngawe ko ni ko na fai e motua pe ko taha ia ngahi o ngongo ko ia tau fie fanongo ko ia he koe taim lahi, koe mea hange koe lau koe pehe, he? It's not what you have, but it's not what you know, but who you know. Ai time lahi ta ko e ko ke te si ilo i kita te totonu kai hang he whahinga ia take advantage kita. Mulai ki kita ko i ngā ko pehe ko kai ke ai ha mea ke te ilo ko i ngā ko te totonu ia. Time pek tu ko te ke kautali ko sio, they fight for you and they are there for you. And that's what your protection and that's your insurance, legally. Ko whamalo lahi a teni, whamalo atu i he vahe whafofa ko ini pe ko tu fu aunga piko tau kainga. Whepea whetu ke mea mai me ai. O hange ko nofko na Amerikani, state ni manoa, kawai mo kānata. Tō lahi a pito kautonga ko ia, o ko hange kautonga ko, na whanau mai ki he tau prokalama me kānata. Lava lelei pe ke mo ngawe aki eni. Pea ko ia ai ko e liko shieldia ki tola pe wanima. Pea ngā pao ke loto ke toi mao pe maha o seniti. O lava pe ke mao e taimi ke ngawe aki ai whainga maari ko ni. Whamalo lahi atu tēni, we look forward to, ke tātou polkalama pe i he kaha u. Koe ne o ate whainga maari ko ni, ke mo mea mai pe ki ai. Ko taim pe mo whe mao ke mo whe tutaki lewa ki a Michael Haloti Puloka. Ia Michael Haloti Puloka koe telefonie ne e tuku atu i he taimini. Ai koe ua noa ono, nima noa wha, hiwa fitu ni mataha. Ua noa ono, nima noa wha, hiwa fitu ni mataha. Pea ko ia ni mo fitu taki hanga tona pe mo tau kia Michael Halot Puloka ke ne tokoni ki mo tolu. Pea te mo ngo i lewa o mo fie maali e he taimi kotoa pe. Kei ke ngata pe he tau alo lotu, kau to iai pe mo e tau whale i. Whakalao ke ne malu i koe. Tau alo ke lotu o tau fie mau ai tokoni e tau tamai he wani. Pea mo no malu i tau tolu me ngahi palapare ma tau o oho ki ai. Pea koe liko sio lewa, ai taimi taha ko te tō ki ai. He kai ke lava i pe ai e tau lotu ko i ngā koe mea ia na ke whai. Koe taimi le vaini koe hange pe hangai pota whaka o tua ma ngai whainga maari whaka o tua ke o mai ke inasi ai pea mo au. Ua noa ono, ni manoa wha hewa whit ni mataku mo mea mai pe ki ai. Kia Michael Haloti Puloka pea koe to tahani o kau mo ia i he kau taki ko ia i he ngawe koe a City of Seattle. Pea o ne futokon lahi au pito ki o tau kai ngā. Whamalo atu tēni, and we look forward to have the program with you again.
Hi, Sylvia. Malo pitoe.
Okay, thank you, and we'll have the program again next Wednesday. Te whamanata tai pē ko tau polokalama i wikaha au, tau kawai pa mo e kau tau tā ko ia ke tā noa ki ta whaako ia mo ile rei. Mo e konga si pēa e mea i King County, ka ko e tau polokalama te tau tau kau whatamo i County, i he wike e ua me heni. Ai a koe aho fitu eni, pea aho taha wha o e wike kahau, ai a koe aho wa taha o e peleri, te tau tau kawai mo e tau group ko ia me King County mono update mai hangai information kai o atu pe ai ngai whanau anonga wike no kotoa. Ko ia te uta et ki whaifasko ni, ospo ka ia pe tau alu heni ki he tau Fiji Bonanza Market.
Hello, welcome to Bombay Fiji Bazaar. We are here to help. Largest collection of Indonesian and Polynesian and Micronesian community. So you're welcome in anytime. We are open 7 days a week from 10 o'clock till 7 o'clock, and Sunday is 10 to 4. So all of our guys are welcome. Indian, Pakistanis, Polynesian, Micronesian. We have all the community stuff right under one roof. Thank you.
Hamalolahi at ka ki mo tolu I he kawhataha pe mai polkama. Ko e aho pule lulu ko tape I he whahiri wiki. O ma polkala mai pe mai kau tuki mo a koia pe kau matata koia e King County Public Health. Aia o po iai whamalo mo loto honga ia mo oni. He nau hangarewa o mai e ngahi ai ngahi yongongo hange ko ngai fitu ke whai ai huhu. Pea moe hai ngai whonga ke mawaha ngai tokoni. Hoa upe ki ha taha uka ki aha ne pepa, o kui aipe ngai tokoni ke whai to o taha koto ape. Pea kui ke ngatai, to aipe mo ngai tokoni ai King County, o ku lava pe ke nauhanga o tokoni I koe, ka tau pe ia, pe e kui ai ha o pepa no fofonua I fonuani. Ko inga koe wha amu pe ke ua e whai ngata ia ka kai. Pea koe ni o kui ai rewa ai telefoni, te utuku atu, koe ua no aono, wha fitu fitu, tolu hiwa fitu fitu. Aia o kai nau ngai polokalama koe koe COVID relief. Tau te fito ki he ngai api nofo a ngā. Hange ko ki motolu ko whi mau ke mori sisita. Ki ha ngai mea ke lava mau ai toko ni ki motolu ke ngai nofo a ngā. Mau katoa ono a ono. Wha fitu fitu, tolu hiwa fitu fitu. Pea o kutoi ai rewa mo ki motolu koe o mo nofo I he wahengani. Te mo alo atonu pe ki a open outlet collection. Ka mataia I he ahoni, o au ke au taha wau lele, he aho kotoa pe ai huhu. Pea koe whai huhu ia koe ni, o ku whai huhu pe taha koe te whemau e ke hu tō ua koe ia. Aia sponsor ia e Johnson & Johnson. Pea utoi ai lewa pepa mo I whika telefoni, aia o ku koe ki motolo koe kai ngatonga mo whanonga mai. Mo whetu take hanga tona ke pe ki he take koe ia community tonga. Koe ua ni matolu, ua ni mawalu, walu wha, walu walu. Kia sina, aloi tafuna, tu I vai peka. Ua ni matolu, ua ni mawalu, walu wha, walu walu. Mo whitu take ake pe kia sina, tu I vai peka. Kene toi oat mai whakiki, iu kai ngai whetu ia he ni o ku ngāwe kia sina. Pea hange ko ki mo tolu koe mo nofati Federal Way. Mo whetu take ake ke telefoni, koe wanoa ono. Ono walu ono ni maua wataha. Ua no ono, ono walu ono ni maua wataha. Aia ko mo whetutaki ki a Joseph se ia pe koe kau ngāwe ko ia I he Pacific Islander Community Association of Washington. Ko ia pa whamalo atu whaki pia mo e konga honoua ko ia e tau polokalamana, tau kauwhataha whikai mo tēni katoa ko ia me liko sio. Aia ko mo whitutaki ake lewa, ha taime o mo whaingata ia pe ka hangai me aku tukua ki mo tau ki ai. Ko e wana ono, ni manoa wha hi wawhit ni mataha ki a haloti puloka. Pea o gai whamalo lahi he nei pe ki a Christina Predict, malo au pito ko e taka ia o e taki ko ia he kau ofisa whetutaki. Ko ia kune hanga whotutu e ngai polokalama koe ni. Ke mauai ha ngai whainga maari mo ilo ai ngahi o ngongo me ngahi information ki ho tau ka inga tonga. Tau te whito ki mo tolu mo nofo i he kolo e malata, Seattle, Washington ni Amerika. Pea ko ia mawa o mai eni ki wha osinga i tau polokalama. Ko e wha malo hini ka ki mo toko tape, wha malo te heni ki a Pam Rose Langi, mo Lini Safi, all the way ki Australia, malo apito si kau mai tokoua. Pea whageni ki a whaiwhi kau Islari Whangpo, malo apito kau mai pa mehe Bay Area. Pea whoki ki a Loisi Tupo Tahawhe, all the way ki Tonga. Pea Lasike Moi Moi, malo apito kau mai. E toki te ho mo ngai whae ui ki polokalama ko e ka hoko. Pea wha malo atu hini ki toko taha kotoa pe. Thank you so much, Gino, to all our Pacific Islanders broadcast. Joseph Seia, Gigi from the Marshallese, also Amelia from the Fiji Islands, and also I think Seini Puloka Tatola representing our Tongan community for our King County program. Malo apito te tau hoka te iwi ka ke tala noa ke ngai tawa aki mo inelei. Pea mo e tau kau toke tā te nau kau mai i tau program koe iwi ka hau. Pea e toki o atu ai mo e tau ngahi o ngongo koe ia me tua preanga. Mai ngahi o ngongo kala whanua me kau taki community ko tape i Amerikani. Malo apito ko te tau atu he. Pa malo he ni ke mau engineer ahani. Shout out to Sela Tupo Fuspala de Vilo. Thank you so much, for doing our radio engineering, our program to make it happen and possible for today. Thank you all for the tawa tuhe kapane ato patumia na kay ko mo tao mo kau sa sai lele taha. Ya ko fa malo atu. O fa ke mo ma o hawi ke lele. Ta hoko to ai pe mo tau lele. Ya mo kai mo ngai to ko ni mo lele. Mo ma na va ake ngai fresh air. Kai ngai bestapolo, kai mo ngai floti. Ya ki Francis hi pope tau kai kakano imano. Ko tau fetongo ni aki pia mo vahe ke ahoni. Ka ko ki motolo ko ia o ko kau no atu i tai mini. Ka pau o kuyai ha o mo ma o ki moto e arthritis pa ko kau ki. Ka mo follow fo ke ngai foi akau ke ta ofelanga. Tene ta ofelanga ka tene to hanga mau e ko ngalahi i ho ngai o kani i system. Ko ia mau inga e ta nofo o ma o ngai me to ko mo ilele e ko ia o ki peni me ai. Ho tau sino i ako tape. E to whai ai pe e tau nofo mo tau ngahi family. O whaat ka ki mo tau ko tape. Ma lo a pito mo mea mai. Te ta tau a ki he film do whaho a. Ka silidia. Ka tima taimi aho. Me Seattle, Washington. Thank you everyone for joining our Pacific Islanders broadcast today. Have a blessed day and weekend to everyone. Don't fast fua. Nisan pula. And alofa lava. Alofa ya te oi tamas amor.